Well, everybody, it's exactly one day after the fateful trip down to Waterbury, Connecticut to look at the Wells Index mill. And, well, what ended up happening was I came home, I did a little more research, I started to think more about some of the things I saw in that cabinet and what their value would be.
In 1/4 mile.
And just the value of the mill. And I decided that I should buy it for $1,200. So I called back the seller and I told him that I would like to accept his offer of $1,200 for the cabinet and its contents in the mill. At which point he agreed, and he assured me that they had taken down the ad for the machine shop equipment, and that he would not relist the mill and the cabinet amongst the items to be sold again. In other words, he's going to try and sell them again by listing them in separate ads, that being the big shear and the South Bend lathe. As of this morning, or actually as of midday today, I still haven't found any listings, so I don't think that's high on his priority list right now. So he doesn't have dime one of my money yet. We've made an agreement that I will be coming down there next Tuesday, April Fool's Day, and presenting him with the $1,200 and taking delivery at that time of both of those items. So it's still not a fait accompli yet. You know, I won't know for sure that I've really got it until they use the forklift and put it on my truck. So anyways, that being said, that's good news, I think. But today, I'm on my way to someplace here in Massachusetts to look at a lathe. I don't need another lathe. I need another lathe like a hole in the head. But I'm always looking for lathes in the hope that I might come across a handy parts candidate. Well, I came across this lathe, and the reason why I'm going, I really can't afford to buy any other stuff right now. As it is, I stretch myself thin by buying this milling machine. But I had already made the appointment to go see the lathe ahead of time.
Turn right.
So anyways, we're going to go check this lathe out. Now, the reason why I am interested in this lathe is because, for one thing, he's only asking $400.
Turn right.
Secondly, the title of the ad, he just put lathe. In the body of the ad, he's calling it a Vernon lathe. Now, I did a little research. Turns out you can't find a lot of information on Vernon lathes.
Turn right, then turn left.
The only reference I could find to Vernon lathes was on the Vintage Machinery website. There was a thing in there, a little blurb that said, as far as they could tell, this manufacturer went into business around 1916. He didn't make, very small company apparently, they didn't make a lot of lathes before they ceased production. Either that, or there is some reference to the possibility that they actually ended up merging with Prentice Brothers, and that being said, they may have become Prentice Brothers at that time. Well, I'll tell you what. The picture he showed of the lathe is not a great picture. I'll show it here. So I was looking at the picture and I'm saying, geez, that looks like a Hendy. I mean, I'm no expert, but that sure looks like a Hendy to me. I really focused in on the apron, and looking at the apron, the handle to the right of the apron, to change the direction of travel. You know, a lot of lathes didn't have that handle there. That was a big deal in the Hendy. That's why you're supposed to be able to, you know, leave the half nut engaged and change direction and not have to have a threading dial and all that. This lathe looks like it's got that same handle. The clutches on the center of the carriage hand wheel, and the other clutch for the cross feed. Again, very reminiscent of my Hendy. So even the quick change gearbox looks kind of Hendy-esque. So I got to go and take a look at this thing, because he's saying this thing's got a tapering jig on it, and I think he's got 1 or 2 chucks with it. So the other reference I found, I go to Lathes UK, which is a great website. It's run by a guy named Tony. I hear him referenced a lot. So Tony's got some great information on his website. He's got a machinery database in there for old machinery. And there isn't even a listing for Vernon underneath lathes. But then I found that there was a listing for Vernon under mills. And it turns out the reason why is because apparently there was a company named Vernon from Vernon, California that made mill drills. But those came much later than when this lathe that I'm talking about was supposedly made. So there's another kind of weird thing going on there. So what we've got here is we've either got a Hendy that the guy was told it was a Vernon Brothers or a Vernon lathe and he doesn't realize it, or we've got a very rare lathe. Either way, I certainly think it's worth taking a look at. Hey everybody, it's the evening of I believe March 27th. If I recall correctly. Today was the day that I took that ride out to look at that lathe. That was the Vernon Manufacturing Company lathe. And when I got there, I was perplexed, and I gotta tell you, what I ended up finding was, I took one look at that apron and carriage assembly, and it screamed Hendy. It was identical, virtually identical to mine. The layout, I mean, I just couldn't get over how much it looked like a Hendy. The headstock, because it's a cone head, I wasn't quite sure whether or not it looked, it certainly didn't look like a tie bar Hendy, but it could have been an earlier Hendy. But here's the weird thing. The quick change gearbox looked like my Hendy. It had that 1, 2, 3 shifter to the left, and then it had the regular tumbler shift control. The threading chart looked identical, right down to the fact where it talked about a 60, whatever the heck was, 60 whatever tooth gear needing to be changed in order to get 11.5 threads per inch. I mean, I couldn't get over how much this thing looked like a Hendy. So I figured, you know, the guy, somebody told him that it was a Vernon machine lathe. But here's the thing, right above, on the actual threading chart, it clearly said Vernon Machine Company, Worcester, Massachusetts. That's right here in our neck of the woods, so apparently it is. And then on the legs, I actually have my leg here. Now, this, of course, is my leg here. The leg on that lathe is taller because that lathe doesn't have a chip pan, so it's got the taller legs that go right up to the bottom of the bed. And clearly embossed right here on the leg going right around, it says the Vernon Machine Works, Worcester, Massachusetts, again. So it's clearly it's a Vernon lathe. Tried to do a little more research tonight, only to find out that apparently I had thought I had committed it to memory incorrectly about Prentice Brothers coming out of this company. Apparently, this gentleman, I forget his last name, his first name was Vernon. He worked for Prentice Brothers, and then apparently he left Prentice Brothers and went on his own and formed the Vernon Machine Works like in 1916. Apparently they only were in business until like 1920, and they didn't have a whole lot of capital during that time compared to Prentice Brothers before them, and Reed and Prentice and a couple other companies that were actually formed that whole group. So it's very interesting, needless to say. I looked for a serial number on the bed, seeing if I could find a serial number, because then I figured, well, maybe I could give the serial number to somebody like the gentleman they call Handyman, and he might be able to get me more information. Where the normal serial number location would be on the bed for a Hendy, there was nothing there. In fact, the only thing I could find there was the number 13. And I'm thinking, you know, could that be a serial number? Could this company have made so few lathes that this was number 13 off of the production line? Needless to say, it's a rare lathe. From a collectible standpoint, it should be valuable, but the thing is, there aren't a lot of people collecting lathes, so that's the bad part about it. The good part about it is I ran it through its paces, and it seemed to work pretty decent, you know. So the way I left it was, you know, he was asking 400 for it, and I offered him 200, which is, you know, cheap, a little better than scrap, really. But I just, you know, looks like I just purchased that Wells Index milling machine, and got a few other things I spent a little bit of money on, not necessarily machine related.